Leadership Isn't Rocket Science: 6 Ways to Boost Your Leadership IQ by Eve Becker Doyle. As a disclaimer, it should not surprise you that Eve and I are close friends. We worked side by side for 4 years, and before that, while I was a board member, I had access to call on her when needed. In fact, as an NATA member, I had access to her before becoming a board member and after my service as president ended. She was always available to NATA members and would answer phone calls and emails in a timely and honest way. She would face up to an angry member as eagerly as she would a completely satisfied member. The relationship between paid staff and volunteer leaders for NATA is critical to its success, I believe. Eve knew nothing about athletics or athletic training for that matter. A couple of examples. The first meeting I attended with her as president-elect was on the eve of the national championship football game, and I asked her who she was pulling for. She had no clue there was a game that night and knew absolutely nothing about college football or athletics at all. The second instance occurred when she and I attended the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainers Society annual conference in Baltimore. We sat beside each other, and I was enjoying the presentation on facial injuries for the educational value it was offering me. When I looked at Eve, she had her head buried in her BlackBerry. She would never look up during any academic presentation we attended together. She had the weakest of stomachs and could never tolerate any discussion about athletic injuries, how we care for them, surgical interventions, and so on. It was funny, but she clearly didn't attend meetings to learn about what we do. It was about who we are. I didn't have the same interests she had either, like opera or ballet or whatever. I'm sure she laughed at me and my love for athletics. What she did love, however, was association business, and she ran it perfectly. She knew about how an association should operate and be represented. As a volunteer, I had no clue. That is what makes this relationship perfect, even if the outcomes are not perfect all the time. People would ask me if I thought the president should ever become an employee of NATA because of the demands, and the job is very demanding. It can be a 24/7 job, but I believe it should remain a volunteer position. As volunteers, we offer ourselves for the job because we want to give back to a profession we love. The pressure or obligation that would go along with being paid would erase the value of just volunteering for the betterment of a cause in which you believe. Those who volunteer do so because they love NATA, not for any monetary reward they might get. As you read the book, you may come to discover through the 6 lessons she offers that effective leadership really is not rocket science. As another aside, if you do not know David Sadler, NATA's current executive director, I'd encourage you to get to know him. He's very similar to Eve, and it fits perfectly into the athletic training world. And as a student of leadership and athletic training, I would encourage you to get to know NATA staff whenever you can. The easiest and best time to visit, although they are under the greatest pressure, is at the annual meeting. I hope you enjoy the book and learn how good leadership can be basically common sense, and that the way you lead can be as easy as 6 lessons. As you work your way through the discussion questions and the case problems, know that the real-world examples presented will provide you with the opportunity to form "what would I do" answers, while you continue to put the ingredients of your mentoring plan together for your project. Prologue. The greatest point of the prologue, and you would be well served to take advantage of the lesson, is to watch and model a good leader. Your future as a leader will be built on a foundation that can continue to evolve until you are in any number of leadership roles. Chapter 1. Approachable and accessible. It's imperative for good leaders to be approachable, but the kicker is that they need to be accessible too. When someone you mentor comes to talk with you, You need to make them comfortable with the knowledge that you are accessible to. What does that mean? It means that you listen, you give them your full attention, and you don't rush them. Eve's office door was always open, and when you dialed her extension, she either answered or left an option for voicemail. She always returned her calls. That went for staff too. They could walk in any time and let her know what was going on. There was no screening her calls. For me as president, it was the same. There was no one to screen my calls. I laughed then and still do after a call came into the Austin Peay athletic training room and I answered the phone. The voice on the other end was amazed and he said, "You actually answer your phone?" as a question and an exclamation. I said, "Yes. Who did you expect to answer my phone?" Whatever the issue, I was more than happy to talk to members directly. Be approachable and accessible. Treat people respectfully. Remember, as you deal with people, it is the people who matter, not what they are bringing to you. Even in adverse situations, all people deserve to be treated respectfully. You will get so much more back if those you mentor know that, although they may make mistakes, you will care about them and not judge them for errors made. A good leader is able to separate the act from the person. It's also important that you not publicly embarrass anyone. The best leaders are able to settle differences or work with a mentee if it is done in the privacy of an office, not in front of coworkers or quote-unquote customers. Take it behind closed doors. Leaders must be the grown-ups in the room. Share the credit and shoulder the blame. Although it shouldn't always be about the negative, this is often what draws us to judge a leader. A leader who stands up and is willing to admit fault on behalf of an entire group is someone who will earn the respect of those who are being led. On the other hand, it is as critical to share the credit. A good leader, in my opinion, shines a light on everyone around him or her after a success. The light should be bright and should be broad enough that everyone who might have had a hand in it feels the glow. You may have heard the quote which says, "Success has 1,000 fathers and failure is an orphan." As a leader, you might as well learn that no truer quote can be found. When there's success from your leadership, be gracious in sharing the credit, while in defeat, be prepared to stand alone and be magnanimous about acknowledging your shortcomings. Follow the advice given in this chapter, and everyone you mentor will gladly stand shoulder to shoulder with you. They will know they can trust you, whether it's giving credit or taking the fall when it needs to be done.